In this week's DCS SITREP, Eagle Dynamics drops a massive patch which includes changes from the team across various aircraft, including third-party developers Heatblue, who have introduced wear and tear, as well as the arrival of the F-14A GR early variant, and as mentioned over the last few weeks, several maps got major updates as well. If you're looking to join thousands of others who are enjoying the PC VR journey in flight simulation or racing simulation, then look no further than the Pimax Crystal Lite, which is their entry-level VR headset with some of the best visuals in the business. Right now, the Pimax team is offering a limited time offer trade-in deal on your current headset so that you too can enjoy the clarity of glass-aspheric lenses providing ultra-sharp 2880 by 2880 resolution per eye. Not only that, but the team advised me recently that they have now expanded the trade-in option for the Crystal Super. This is the flagship headset supporting retina levels of clarity, and by taking advantage of this limited option trade-in deal, you'll get the Pimax DMAS headphones valued at $99 and prescription lenses powered by Hans VR up to $159.90. Now, the DMAS gift will officially end on September 14. However, all users who join the event during the campaign are guaranteed to get it. Don't forget to include Prickly Hedgehog 72 when submitting the upgrade form. This ensures you'll receive an extra gift. Now, with this trade-in deal and limited free shipping to the US, EU, UK, Australia, and Canada, it's never been easier to dive into the amazing experience that VR delivers thanks to Pimax. Check out the link in the description below for more information so that you can start your own immersive experience in VR with Pimax. Welcome back to the DCS SITREP. I'm your host, Prickly Hedgehog. Once again, as we wind down 2025, Eagle Dynamics is introducing a raft of changes, fixes, and improvements, and we got that once again with the expected big patch. As I said, it included updates to maps, it includes updates to various aircraft, and of course those third-party teams as well, working on everything from campaigns to aircraft. So let's dig into some of the highlights here from this pretty extensive changelog. There were several changes to AI aircraft, things as simple as the F-16 won't attack targets head-on with missiles in certain situations. That's been corrected. They have updated the nozzles of the short landing configuration on the AI AV-8B, and it's now using the power brake nozzles, and overhead pattern landing has been added for the Harriers as well. The F-4E sometimes descends to 500 feet before climbing and continuing its mission. That has been corrected. And they've added some new tasks for helicopters, including the external cargo load and external cargo unload. The old task cargo transportation external is removed, and the possibility to add in the mission editor has been hidden for new missions, while compatibility with the old missions has been retained, which is good news. And this includes other fixes as well with regards to cargo, which is good news because, let's be real, we're still waiting for the C-130J from Aircraft Simulations Company, which is somewhere out there in the ether. Hopefully, it's going to be introduced soon. Now, there were several fixes to weapons, including things like the GB31 penetration checks has been added. 180 seconds delay is not recommended as a suitable setting for this kind of target. It should be set to a shorter one. They've done some improvements to the R-27 family of missiles, which includes the improved network sync of trajectory, and they've also improved the network sync of explosions for air-to-air and SAM missiles. There's been some adjustments to the coloring and grouping design of the user interface. In the debriefing screen, they've added new options for Warehouse Resource Manager Interface Copy To functionality. They've added the ability to add subtitles to radio transmission trigger actions, which is cool. And in the graphics and effects department, they've done some work on the explosive and smoke effects displayed in the multifunction displays in the cockpit, where artifacts were there, those black textures have been fixed. They've added some new USSR and RF civilian trucks with various liveries for the GAZ-66 CAM AZ43101, the U-Roll 4320 Refueler ATZ-5 flatbed version and canopy version, the ZIL-131 tractor unit, and in the list of units they will be displayed with the Mark Civil for civilian, and they've added some new liveries for technical LC series as well. So one of the features of the multiplayer dynamic aircraft slots, aircraft, usually larger aircraft that are spawning in open shelter parking that are too small to contain that aircraft in question has been fixed. Things like the dynamically spawned FARPs via the script API do not appear in the dynamic slots interface. And with regards to the launcher here, they've fixed things like the position of checkboxes on the files greater than the available page. They fixed error when trying to open the FC 2024 bundle. And they've also fixed some links to product pages in the news, which is good news. And lastly here in the general stuff, Current Hill Asset Pack, they've added or fixed at least liveries for the T90A, the Mi-28N, and the T95MS, and they've fixed the list of available payloads in the mission editor for the Mi-28N and the Tu-95MS as well. That was not the full list of extensive changes there for quality of life improvements for the game. Let's turn now to aircraft, many of which receive extensive updates, one of the big ones being the MiG-29A Fulcrum by Eagle Dynamics.
Управление, добрый вечер. Россия, С-155. На 139-й стоянке, информация ящик, Домодедово, Шедедов.
Россия, 155, управление, добрый вечер. Разрешено к аэродрому назначения, Акудайдер Дельта, ВДП-10 ЕА, Кудатычка. 0727, запуск разрешаю.
Starting with the AFCS, they've improved the autopilot-induced oscillations. This is still a work in progress, however. The fire control radar, they've fixed the cooperation mode track range bug. Random STT brakes, azimuth zone switch, and delta H knob do not affect close combat mode anymore, and lost track in CC mode if co-op is on. The ERST system, they've fixed the gun trigger guard for the nav mode, the radar acquisition co-op mode in opt and helmet modes, missile acquisition in opt and helmet modes, tone and voice messages in bore sight and grid, the ERST close combat, CC and FCR CC formats, and a wrong segmented HMD indication. So all their fixed for that. With regards to weapons here, they've added, good news, training mode for bombs, rocket, and gun. You can choose this in the DTC as well. You'll need to refer to the game manual. They've fixed things like the missile launch in BS mode. Missile emergency launch is restricted on the ground. The NOLA indication freezed. The KMGU unloading, corrected self-altitude based on laser range. The SBO-15, the database has been updated, changed condition for the CW illumination for the F4 to illuminate all AIM-7 variants. Wrong elevation volume when a submode changes bar pattern, which was causing extremely faint signals in those cases from AI radars and search mode. They've adjusted formatting for occlusion remarks in the kneeboard. They've fixed the damaged engines which continue to spin at 80% RPM. They've fixed the test HUD color, the APU power mode, hydro source instead of APU, cold crank has been repaired. Startup mode switch logic, and the AFCS bit can't complete that bit when using a force feedback joystick. They've edited the oxygen panel switches. They've fixed the HUD HDD startup. The display should appear approximately 54 seconds after turning on navigation and a cold start. Ground power, of course, has to be present. If none of the gyro, manual gyro, standby, or nav controls are enabled, the page is displayed without the airplane's pitch and bank scales or horizon lines. They've fixed the damaged INS continuing to steer HUD HDD directional ring to true north. They've added sound when scrolling messages on the Outrun and slightly adjusted the message format. They've fixed missing max G load on the AOA G meter, nice, and display export needed the correct aspect. We'll fix the added shaking and the rubber banding over the HDD. They've fixed the left red nav light, stays on when the corresponding wing is cropped. AI and static units have the wrong configuration of exhaust nozzles when cold. Now in VR, for those of you into VR like myself, helmet is not drawn correctly when the forced IPD distance parameter is changed. A little fix there. And also now the gun trigger toggle, we have first intent release. That's been added with categories for within the stick, HOTAS, or special menus within the controls configuration. And lastly, the last three here, the angle of attack measurement range on the the AOA and G meter. They've done some work on the logbook, not recording time, or your seat time in the MiG-29A, which is important for those of us who log our hours. And then lastly here, the PRMG channel is set to 54 at mission start. So a big list of changes there to be expected with a brand new aircraft in game and also it being in early access. I'm enjoying this aircraft, I must say. I do need to spend more time in it. Unfortunately, life gets in the way sometimes. I've been, as I've said previously, still very busy at work and minor home projects. So yeah, loving what they've done with this. I think it's a great introduction and it's fun to have, you know, a later model Red 4 aircraft. Long may that continue. Here's fingers crossed and hoping for similar aircraft down the road. For now, we'll just have to satiate our desire for that with the MiG-29, which is doing a very good job. Now, moving over to the later variants of Gen 4 aircraft in regards to the Viper and the Hornet. These are Eagle Dynamics modules as well. So they've added a first-person view visor effect for the F-16. They've also added new units to the NCTR database. The MIDS names table has been updated. They've fixed significant lag in frame rate and game stutter when ATP XR was entered or exited. Point track drifts off target after switching to non-tracking cameras. The HOTAS strafe command, uncage, greater than 1 second, does not change the SMS format to STRF, and similar to what we saw with the MiG-29, the helmet is not drawn correctly when the force IPD distance parameter is changed. The ATP-A TGP moves off track erratically at start of tracking. MFD format selection issues have been fixed. Similarly for the Hornet, first person new visor effect. JDAM JSOW, quantity reset if another weapon is selected. Same for the helmet here in VR with the force IPD issue. And some RWR friendly no ID option not working in the SA page has been fixed. Let's turn now to the Apache. They've added the multifunction input center to the AH-64D CPG controls. They've renamed the consent to fire command in AH-64D pilot controls to multifunctional input center to more accurately describe the AI CPG functions added to this command in the DCS update, which occurred on the 23rd of July. They've added AI subtitles checkbox in the AH-64 special tab options to selectively disable George subtitles during gameplay, if that's your thing. If DCS subtitles are disabled entirely in the miscellaneous tab options, the AI subtitles option in the special tab will be overridden and the George AI subtitles will also be disabled. So FYI there. They fixed the George speech volume adheres to the intercom volume as set by the master knob on the comm panel. Nice. Rotating the master knob fully left or counterclockwise will mute George and disable his subtitles. That's kind of a neat little feature. And they've improved the AI user interface. They've added here an AI helper interface for reviewing available AI pilot commands. That's useful. They've renamed the CMWS mode to Defense, or DEFN, and is only accessible with long press, greater than 0.5 seconds, of the George AI show hide command to improve workflow between FLT, HB, and combat. Improved AI pilot logic, that is a list. So we're talking here things like avoids and corrects for exceeding torque limitations, rotor droop, low speeds if it's power limited, improved power level behavior on the ground and in flight, automatic switch between nose to tail trim at low speeds and aerodynamic trim at high speeds, etc., etc. So some good updates there as well. Now they've added new speed settings. They've added multifunctional input command for toggling between using ground speed or true airspeed, GS or TAS, as assigned speed references. 0 knots hover can only be set to ground speed. They've added more speed options for realistic maneuvers and tactics on time on target arrivals. Speed options now include 0, 20, 40, 60, 75, 90, 100, 110, 120, and max. They've added new altitude settings. So we have multifunctional input command for toggling between using the radar altimeter or barometric altimeter as assigned altitude references. They've improved switching logic between altitude references when operating over terrain with high elevations, so great for Afghanistan. They've added ground interface mode, includes commands for startup and shutdown procedures to include intermediate stages of readiness. They've added exterior lighting settings in the DEFN mode or defense mode which includes multiple exterior lighting configurations, including a blackout for combat conditions. So that'll please some people. They've fixed the TSD pan to point. It does not work if no points are visible on the TSD. Some MPD button states do not affect other MPD on the BAM page. And RF missile target data erroneously retained when sight is changed. And the known issue here right now is switching George AI pilot's altitude reference between radar and barometric when hovering at an altitude of 20 feet or less over the surface can cause a conversion error that will force George to land and may not be able to switch back to radar altitude. This has been fixed internally, so we'll have to wait for another push out, in other words, for that to be corrected. So a little bit of an odd bug, but however, plenty of updates there to keep people happy, hopefully, at the overall development of that particular aircraft, which has been in game for a couple of years now and was a fantastic introduction. Moving over to the Hind, also a great aircraft. Couple of minor things here. They've done some tuning of Petrovich AI target search algorithm for the cases when targets are located within a clutter of many different objects. So Petrovich cannot see units that are in plain view. Bugs and problems in the ED forums. Line of sight bug in Syria. Bugs and problems again in the ED forums. So if you are aware of these, or if you're looking to talk about one that you've found, maybe go to the forums first and see what the scoop is there. Moving on to the fact that Petrovich AI can't hit amphibious vehicles with an ATGM while they are in the water. That's been fixed. Again, this was a bug reporting problem. So good stuff there, and thanks to ED for picking those up and making the necessary corrections. Now remember that one of the big introductions this year was the data transfer cartridge that has been long awaited for, which allows for sort of pre-programming before you slot into the aircraft. This is done through the mission editor interface, remember. So anyway, they have done quite a few changes here. This includes adding F-16 and FA-18 reprogramming RWR threat tables. The F-16 RWR programmed on the RWR tab within the threat tables ELINT DTC partition. Reorder the threat priorities for high alt and low alt threat tables. Select which radar types are programmed within the RWR bases, or databases at least, and assign radar types to only be displayed when enabling search or unknown buttons. And, you know, the rationale behind this is if you know what kind of threat environment you're going to be working in, you can make, the RWR or get it set up to be more effective in dealing with those particular threats, so you're not kind of flying blind, I guess. Now, moving over to the F-18, similarly, they've reprogrammed the disk type tab within the threat tables and countermeasures for the ALR-67, the DTC partition. You can, again, reorder the threat priorities for norm, AI, AAA, unknown, and friend threat tables. You can select which radar types are programmed within the RWR database, designate radar types as friend, and assign ASPGA to only jam specific radar types. Again, as you can see, it becomes particularly user-friendly and smarter, again, depending on what environment you're going into, so that you can pre-plan a little bit better. So that's the nuts and bolts behind that. Maybe unnecessary for the average player, but again, it's a cool feature. Moving over to being able to, you can delete the SPO-15 threat program using choosing from the DTC. The airfield RWR direction is always 0 if there are LRW types. That's been corrected. They've done some fixes here for the GUI error when trying to change runway and aerodrome tab in some cases, and another error when load DTC or import DTC after using root point arrows. They've fixed the MiG-29A data from Program 1 tab. It was displayed in Program 2 tab in some cases. Auto-choosing aircraft type. If there is aircraft with skill, player needs to choose this type automatically on the new window. And then with regards to the MiG-29A, they've added aerodrome sorting in the drop-down menu. And then lastly here, keystrokes during exporting DTC file picked up in the cockpit. So a lot of important updates there for that particular piece of equipment. As I said, long awaited, much asked for over the years, and it is here now and continues to be worked on, which is good. One aircraft that's still seeing attention, and I do see thread comments about this not getting enough attention, but the Chinook, or the CH-47F, again an Eagle Dynamics product. They've done some fixes here for the incorrect input via scratchpad on the ref select page. Can't change the VOR ILS frequency via the presets page. The back ramp visibility when the machine gun is installed has been fixed. Left MFCS viewport not visible. They've added unique cockpit noises for the VoIP background. They've improved controls indicator, which has new information for the stick trim, pedals trim, throttles, and ground detent. So continued work on that aircraft, which is a good one. I enjoy flying that. Again, another one of those aircraft one needs more time in. Now, the navigation suite of devices that Eagle Dynamics, we're talking here the NS430, has also received some updates. It wasn't possible to turn off the 3D model in the MiG-29A cockpit, and then the last page stays visible after being powered off. That's been fixed as well. Well, let's turn to the F-4E Phantom II by Helos Simulations. It really needs no introduction, and it's been in the game for a good year now and continues to receive lots of updates. It was a groundbreaking aircraft with the way in which Eagle Dynamics and Heatblur worked to get this aircraft doing a lot of different things in the game that we haven't seen before with regards to wear and tear and very complex systems that much more realistically mimic the way in which an aircraft like this behaves and evolves over time in terms of that wear and tear, and of course some other really cool GUI interface stuff. A really good aircraft, and it has been well received. So again, a huge list of changes here, and let's have a look at what we have. So they've added the Chuck L guide to the documents page, so it'll be in the mods aircraft F-4E doc, and it's also in the virtual browser here. They've added and this is really cool, Electronic Flight Bag, or EFB, which provides insights into various aircraft systems. You access this via right control plus I, or the clickable document holder on the pilot's left sidewall. That's a work in progress. And what this gives you is access to information about the fuel system page, the electric system page, and also the engine page, as well as mission editor options, which will allow you to use the EFB. A really cool and interesting feature. Again, one of the unique features of this particular aircraft that Heatblur did a lot of work bringing to life. All right, moving over to the big introduction, which is the persistent aircraft system, which allows saving and loading the same aircraft, including its properties, which will include wear, tear, and condition across missions or campaigns. A really unique feature for DCS world, and something that I think is quite interesting from Heatblur here. Now, the aircraft state is automatically saved when the aircraft is successfully left on the ground. So obviously crashing it's probably not going to do it much good. So anyway, this option is enabled via either the mission editor or in the special options. Now, if it's enabled through the special option, press the initialize persistent aircraft state. The keyboard bind in-game to initialize aircraft state. Saving is left control plus P. The aircraft is tracked by its livery and tail number. Optionally, a persistent aircraft key can be set in the mission editor to enforce specific airframe continuity across the missions. This is useful for campaign builders. Mission editor persistence settings overrides user special options. So again, yes, very useful there for campaign creators, and we'll see what comes of this in terms of existing campaigns or new campaigns coming in the future. Now, moving on from that, they've added the QF-4E aerial target drone AI unit, which has its own dedicated livery. They've also added the display screen export, and they say see the manual for details on that. Systems wear and tear quality improvement. So flight instruments now exhibit degraded behavior when they're of low quality or they're worn. So you're going to have reduced accuracy, sluggish needle response, increased friction. They've also implemented random failures based on each component's mean time between failure, MTBF, and current aircraft condition. So some pretty complex stuff going on there. Now, aircraft wear and tear negatively affects aerodynamic and engine performance. And that's a really interesting concept. So we'll see how the calculus behind that's really quite fascinating, I think. So yeah, I guess if you have busted engines or engines that aren't working as well as they should be for whatever reason, you're going to have reduced performance. So again, an interesting concept there. Now, moving on to other quality of life things, they've fixed the pilot glare shield bending in the wrong direction when rolling. They've adjusted the cockpit pressure regulator efficiency, excuse me, and then corrected power sources for landing, anti-collision, and fuselage lights. They've added a new combat tree for the AN APX 80A IFF interrogator system, and they've added combat tree spoofable mission editor option. That's new. TV guided weapons improvements. They fixed the broken seeker on the CAT-M training sidewinder, the captive sidewinder at least, and they've fixed the cage and TV and cage and arm, preventing air-to-air weapons use. They've added the Zuni rockets thanks to DS Player. That's new. They've fixed the missing appearance options for AIM-9. That's also by DS Player. And they fixed the WSO throttle animation sync, which is cool. And improvements to turn points page. Sound fixed conflicting speed brake sound bug has been corrected. They've added handoff diamond manual switching. They've updated the database to include units from current helm. They've updated handoff sounds. They've added RWR utility site to virtual browser. They've added the Jester UI animation speed special options. That's new. They've fixed lost cabin pressure call triggering too frequently. They've added an own markers subcategory to the navigation page, or navigation map markers menu, excuse me. And the Jester now uses the AN APX 80A IFF interrogator combat tree, and they've added new IFF Jester menu entries, and that is new. They've improved prioritization of CMS dispensing. They've fixed the countermeasures quantity readout. They fixed Jester keeping flares off after temporarily disabling them. They've renamed Talk With Me to Talk To Me. Talk to me in the Jester menu. They've adjusted Wizzo startup lesson takeoff parameters to mitigate problems with the autopilot engagement. And they've added new exterior model with the Israeli refueling probe. This is only visual for now, and the Greek AUP. So we have now some extra features, if you like, on those AI models. That's kind of cool. Now they've fixed the stuck navigation and computer rollers. They've added pilot throttle outboard animation and afterburner range. They've fixed 3 position knobs remaining operable when damaged. They've fixed the default chaff burst interval to be set at 0.4 seconds. They've fixed the altimeter mode with the APX 80 test challenge switch clickable and animation being reversed. That's a mission maker's issue there. And then localization, they've updated the CN bind localization. So yeah, a massive list of changes there that people have been working on for some time now. They have said previously that they were quiet because they were doing a lot of work. And one of those things also includes, rather excitingly, and this is something that we saw in the 2025 and beyond video. Apologize for my voice cracking every now and again. We're still recovering from an illness earlier, as we've previously talked about. But the Tomcat, they've added the F-14A 135GR early variant. They've also added the new radar audio to the AN ALQ 100-126 ECM. They've added pre-contact and intent to refuel keybinds, which is cool. They've fixed some functions not being bindable to the mouse, and the RWR has had an updated threats library, and they have therefore also updated the manual, which is cool. Very exciting to see that in game, and hopefully we'll see here the AI version of the A6, and way down the list there somewhere is the flyable version of that too, stacking on behind the Eurofighter, which they're working on with True Grit Simulations, remember. So hopefully we see some more news about that coming up. Wrapping up here, the Kiowa by Polychop. Bingo fuel warning on the CPG load-in. MMS disturbance effect has been removed. The RWR flickering excessively. They fixed the Hellfire missiles, which should show codes in standby. Crashed the desktop when using certain entries in the Fire MSNS hog menu, and then they fixed when importing a new frequency, it will auto change the frequency if it's out of range instead of giving an error message, and you're unable to enter the FM frequency within the comms page. That's been corrected. The crash of desktop when leaving the cockpit has been fixed with the Gazelle. They've fixed Eagle Dynamics has an FPS drop when a Vickers missile appears on the Schwal display. This is with the Black Shark, again an Eagle Dynamics product. And we've already talked about that, so we won't go back. Actually, this is for Flaming Cliffs 2024, excuse me. The MiG-29 autopilot-induced oscillations has been fixed. That was probably a flight model thing there. Same flight model, I believe. The professional flight model being used for both of those aircraft. But systems, etc., are much more complex in the MiG-29A Fulcrum full fidelity. Now, we've talked about these already. Normandy 2, massive updates there. Winter textures, remember, we discussed that last week. Similarly, quite a few updates for the Cola map. As is always the way, when there's a raft of changes in the game, there is a raft of updates and fixes for the campaigns, typically to prevent bugs and other errors coming in. So pretty much all of the campaigns got corrections or fixes, and so some good news there. For those of you who find those, and these are across the board from everyone from Reflected to Ground Pounder to Sorrel Row, and of course Baltic Dragon, Stone Sky, etc, etc. So a raft of changes, like I said. So yeah, that wraps up this week's newsletter. I know it's a long one, so thanks for sticking around. A lot of changes. We're getting very close to the end of the year. As I speculated last week, will we get a 2025 dynamic campaign? Remember, that was something that Eagle Dynamics was hoping to introduce this year. With a couple of months left, of course, the clock is ticking, and we haven't seen anything that represents a working model that we can kind of look at. A lot of you said there's no way we're going to see it in 2025. Some of you were a lot more cynical than that. So yeah, so we're going to have to wait and see if we get more updates on that. We did see some information from Octopus G on the LA7, and they were showcasing some work that they're doing. So it's coming soon. It looks like it appears to be being assessed, at least by Eagle Dynamics right now. That's the inference that I took from one of their latest videos. So stay tuned on that. Like I said, not much time left. And then the big boy, the C-130J Hercules, we're waiting for more information on that. We've seen some snippets and showcasing from other community members and content creators showcasing the work that's going on with that. And that's going to be a very interesting aircraft and provide a lot of different challenges in terms of managing a larger aircraft, multiplayer capacity. Yeah, really a cool concept. So stay tuned again for more on that. Well, thanks for tuning in. Like I said, we'll see you next time on the DCS SITREP. This is Prickly Hedgehog out. We'll see you next time.